synopsis, or I'll just give you mine, where we left off from Joker 1 going into Joker 2. 2 years after the five-man killing spree by Arthur Fleck, aka Joker, in Gotham City, Fleck is now residing in Arkham Asylum, awaiting trial for murder. On the eve of his trial, he meets the devious and mysterious Lee Quinzel, who steals his heart and provides inspiration ahead of his highly publicized court appearance. Ricky Flex, give me a rating. That's my homemade synopsis out of 10.
I want to go 7.1.
Harsh critic, C minus. Okay. Well, I
Okay.
guess 7.1 out of 10 is not exactly a C minus when we're by our scale. That's more
Yes.
like a B.
Thank you.
That's more like a B. Okay. So, Ricky Flex, where we left off, 2 years, Arthur Fleck in prison. I guess we go here. We'll go spoiler free to start because I think we have to make this at least listenable, for lack of a better term, for people who haven't seen the movie yet. What was your instant reactions leaving the theater for Joker 2?
So I also just want to say Joker 1, I wasn't the biggest fan of. Okay. And I remember seeing that movie with you in 2019, walking out of the theater. Obviously, you had the Martha Pearls at the end, Crime Alley, and you had a couple other things that play there at the end of that movie. But overall, the movie, I appreciate that performance. The musical elements of it, I loved. The visuals, great cinematography, the score, all were great. But the overall story and the Batman elements of it just, I think, overshadowed a lot of that movie for me. And the monologue with Robert De Niro, I didn't particularly love that scene, but overall, like fine movie, good aspects of it, but I didn't love it. So for me, my anticipations for this one were okay. I'm expecting sort of the same thing, where I'm gonna love some parts of it, but I'm gonna hate some parts of it. But overall, it's the sequel, so they got to kind of fix some of those issues that I didn't really like out of the first one. I think in some regards they did. But walking out of that theater with you and a couple of our buddies, I did not like this. I thought it was worse by a lot. I thought it was a significant downgrade to the first one. And I think my biggest takeaway walking out of the theater was I don't think this movie had a purpose. And it felt like Joaquin did this for the money. It felt like, oh, Todd Phillips did this for the money. It didn't feel like this had to be made. And I know that's a lazy, we'll get into why, as a lazy way to say like I didn't like the movie, but I will get into it. But that was my initial reaction walking out of the theater.
I have similar feelings, Ricky Flex. I was rattled when I left the theater. I was disappointed and frustrated. Dare I say, this is the most disappointing movie of 2024. And I was trying to look at what we've reviewed, and I don't think anything really comes close to that. Yes, we had Horizon American Saga, right? We just had Megalopolis, right? But those had mixed reactions, and we had tempered expectations. This one, I was a huge fan of Joker. I loved it. I loved the explosive third act, right? It gave a sequel. I know we both kind of agreed, like, it's probably best if there's not a sequel for this because everyone's going to keep wanting this character, this Joker, to finally meet up with Batman, but really it doesn't feel like that's a pure destination for a character like Arthur Fleck, played by Joaquin here. So we got it. And so I'm like, okay, we are going to push this character more into becoming the Joker. And as a comic book fan, I think that this movie was frustrating because it doesn't push the character where you anticipate, and it takes you into a point where you feel depressed at the end of the movie, right? This is a franchise sequel to an IP character that all comic book fans are excited to see. And without going into spoilers, Ricky Flicks, this ending, I would imagine, pissed off so many comic book fans for multiple reasons. And I would
Multiple.
also say the allusions or references to the Batman lore also frustrating, thrown away. And I got the feelings of the ending of Joker with the Pearl showing up. They do the same type of thing, except multiple different facets by the end of this movie that has me want to pull the hair out of my head. And then in terms of actually being a movie fan, this was a disappointment as well.
I
They
think you're
lied. Sorry, I'll really quick. They lied to us Todd Phillips lied to us. Robert Pattinson voice as he's talking to Alfred, you lied to me, right? You lied. This is a musical. This is a musical,
That
Ricky
too.
Flex. This is a musical. There are countless musical numbers, but even if you lie to me and you show us musical numbers, there was only one or two that really stood out, in terms of memorable scenes, in terms of impactful, in terms of getting me juiced to see the rest of the movie. A lot of them were a slog. The courtroom sequences did not live to the hype. So overall, this movie was frustrating on just so many levels and just a disappointment.
I agree with your sentiments on the musical aspect. I didn't expect it to be a full blown musical, but it was as close as you can to being a musical for not being a musical. Hopefully that makes sense. There were over 5 musical numbers, so I think that should count as a musical. And not many of them hit. Some of them look cool. Some of the fantasy sequences, the dreamlike sequences, pretty effective visually. But Joaquin, I'll tell you know what, the biggest one of the biggest takeaways I had for this movie? Country singing is light years easier than I don't know what kind, like normal singing.
Okay, this is where I had issues with this too. The actual performances I had issue with in the musical sequence.
Joaquin and Walk the Line gives one of my favorite performances of the 21st century, and I have stated on this podcast that I would rather listen to his rendition of Johnny Cash songs than Johnny Cash. I think he is fantastic. I listened to the Walk the Line album with Joaquin Phoenix singing a lot. He is not good in this. He is not good at singing this. Some points on purpose, but then when they get to the dreamlike scenarios and it's supposed like not in reality, and he's singing there, and he's supposed to be good, I don't think he's good in that either. Lady Gaga, on the other hand, I think is effective in both sequences, dreamlike and reality. But Joaquin just is not a normal singer. I don't know what the genre like to say, but it's just not country.
I would say the word probably is he's not a natural. I
Thank
like
you.
and I would also say that I kind of put it on Todd Phillips for the type of singing Arthur Fleck is doing in the movie, in these dreamlike sequences, okay, or whatever he's singing in the movie. So he is like talk singing. He's not going all in on a lot of the scenes. But my biggest issue with the musical sequences is that I don't think Lady Gaga got to really showcase her full capabilities. That's my biggest issue. And a lot of people have early criticisms that have come out saying there's not enough Harley Quinn. I disagree. I think there's plenty of Harley Quinn. I just don't think she has splashy enough scenes for the musical sequences. That is why you have her playing this character. And then I also don't like the direction they took with that character in terms of the way they wrote it, her purpose to be in the film aside from monetary reasons. The message of it, it's I guess like Joaquin as Arthur Fleck is putting on this Joker persona and trying to impress her Lee Quinzel, and all of the Gotham, I guess, trogs and the weirdos that follow Arthur Fleck and that worship him. So I see why she's in it, but you have Lady Gaga because she can do the singing and dancing, and she doesn't do enough of it in my eyes, Ricky Flex.
I agree. I think there was enough Gaga, not enough impact. I think you didn't let her shine like we seen her shine in A Star Was Born, where she could really put on a show. It's Lady freaking Gaga. Let her put on a show, and we never really got that. And I think that was kind of that was also very disappointing. And I don't mind, and I should just say this: I don't mind this being a musical. I had my gripes with it when the news came out that this was going to be a musical or potentially a musical, and I had my hesitations. And I think this movie kind of played that out to be correct. But if done right, after again the heavy influence and driving force with music in the first one, I think it could have really worked with a Lady Gaga and even a Joaquin, which I agree with you. I think natural is what the word I was looking for there. Just not a natural singer. You still could have made it work, but I think it is down to Todd Phillips and some of the decision making that he made and the directing choices he made with this movie and the script.
Overall, though, I would say there were a couple of the musical sequences that where I remembered how talented Phillips is as a filmmaker. The dreamlike sequences at points are incredible sets, and it is beautiful to look at. The cinematography, not only in the dreamlike sequences, but during the actual like grounded in reality sequences, is pretty spectacular. That to me was probably the best part of the movie. It was to look at. It was a piece of art.
We were in
But
IMAX too.
does that we were in IMAX, go see it in IMAX, but does that warrant a sequel just because it's going to look good on screen?
You,
I guess, but it's Joker's name attached. Go ahead.
you mentioned we were lied to, and sure, the musical piece, maybe they lied to us a little bit there. It was a little white lie, I think. I think we were lied to with Joaquin Phoenix and Todd Phillips saying like, "Oh, the reason we returned to this character is because we felt like there was more to the story, that we wanted to finish this. We wanted to make this a true origin story. There was a lot left on the table to explore with Arthur Fleck." When you see this movie, there is literally nothing new that they explore. That is a complete lie. That was literally a lie. They did not do that whatsoever in this movie. Maybe with the last trial scene, maybe you could say they did, or they tried to, but they didn't. They didn't. And I think this is a 2 hour, 20-minute movie. There was ample amount of time to do it. The first hour was just basically a recap of what happened in the first movie, mixed with setting you up in Arkham and in prison and in this courtroom. Not like just dull, slow, boring first hour. They had plenty of time to dive deep into this Arthur character, more in depth, like they said they were going to do, and they never did. So I think that is like the blatant lie on this press tour / press tour of the past like 6 months, where Joaquin and Todd Phillips been repeatedly saying like we would only come back to this story and create this script to try to dive deeper into Arthur and really get a true understanding for the fans. Bullshit. That was a complete lie.
So I think, in my opinion, the first movie is like him feeling isolated, wanting success and wanting to be loved and wanting to quote unquote spread joy in the world. The second one is like him reacting to people actually loving him, and then he is battling the persona of Arthur Fleck versus the Joker, right? I think that's not a terrible approach, but I don't think it's great when you're dealing with the most iconic villain in the history of comic books and of comic book movies and arguably in all of cinema. That's an approach where it's a good movie if you're looking at a different person, a different character. But this character has such high expectations and fans want to see him in a certain light. And this movie does not deliver. This movie does not deliver specifically on the comic book front. And that's pretty frustrating here, Ricky Flex. I want to talk about Joaquin and I want to talk about Gaga and some of the other performances here before we get into spoilers. Joaquin, we mentioned the singing. It's kind of hard to get a good read on how good he is in those sequences just because he is doing like this weird type of half singing, half talking type of thing, like not all in, but it just doesn't sound good. How do you think he did in his return as Arthur Fleck?
I think it's
Coming
hard
off
to
coming off an Academy Award win for Best Actor.
right, and with that Academy Award win, he had a body transformation. Look how skinny he got. He also did that the same here. He did like the first movie was more about him being like mentally ill, right? So he put in absolute performance, body transformation, physical performance, just literally a full performance, top to bottom in the first one. And this one, it just besides the singing, it did feel like he had a lot less to do. Like it's just like not as much of a transformation or just a difference from the first to second one. It really wasn't that different. And it was, if anything was different, it was toned back. It was a lot quieter. He doesn't speak for the first 10 minutes except asking for a cigarette in the first 10 minutes of this movie.
Yeah.
He is just a lot more silent, more reserved, less jokery, literally less Joker. It's just more Arthur, but like a calm, quiet Arthur. It's just like not a lot of acting to do, or at least significant acting where you see the outburst or the emotional impact with his mother or Azazi Beats or whatnot. You get that a little bit with Gaga, but then it's just like turns into the singing, which again I said I didn't really love. So overall, just a lot less to do, and I think a lot of that is just the choices with the script and the story.
Yeah, I think his performance is kind of more of a roller coaster, right, through this movie. The first one, it seems like it's like a slow rise, right? It's a slow rise till you get an explosion in the third act. Here he's at an all-time low, right? And then he meets Harley Quinn, Gaga. It starts to vault forward, and then later on in the courtroom sequences, we start to feel like we're peaking. But by the end of the movie, it feels like we drop all the way back down with the performance, right? It seems like it's very much just like I said, it's a roller coaster with this time around. It's not as consistent. He's definitely going through pretty much all of it, through this movie, and it's all happening in reality. So you're seeing him react in real time. He's not imagining things in terms of like the Zazie beats. He's imagining the dreamlike sequences being with Harley Quinn, but she's a real person, right? Like their interactions are somewhat real, you know? So I think he is doing something a little bit different, but in terms of like having as much success, I wouldn't say so. There's a couple scenes that I kind of cringed at. And you see him in the trailer saying, "Look at all you people, like wearing the makeup. That scene's coming. That scene doesn't hit as hard as I thought it was going to in the movie. I was like, the idea of having Joker like in a courtroom dressed up as the Joker, you are like, hell yeah, I cannot wait for this scene. And that one doesn't exactly deliver in my eyes, along with a handful of other ones. The Joker 2019, I am like, Joaquin is on a heater. He cannot miss right now. Some of the dialogue might be cringy with the Murray Franklin, but I can't take my eyes off this guy. I'm just sort of cringing a little bit more when I'm watching this movie. I don't know about you. I'm not more, but like I'm not loving it as much.
Definitely didn't love it as much. Not as smooth of a transition, or not as like like it just felt more sudden.
Yeah.
It didn't felt properly built up like in the first one, as you referred to, with like, oh, you could see this building like frustration with the Arthur Fleck character. And this one, it was like kind of like a roller coaster, like you said, and you couldn't really sense it. You couldn't feel that tone. And I just think, again, that goes to a lot of the pacing of this movie. I mentioned the first hour was, I think, poor. Poor pacing, and tonally just a mess everywhere, and you couldn't really follow it as you couldn't really follow it as well, as in like you could understand what's going on, but follow that tone and what this character, like kind of the trajectory of where it's going to go. And I think that's why when the ending came, I was like, that's really it.
Yeah.
That's it. And not the very ending, but like the actual ending to this character, the true ending, the climax of this movie, which I think was a complete miss.
It was a wind out of the sails type of scene. And it does feel like there's one scene in a dreamlike sequence where it's really getting the adrenaline going. You think you're about to get a third act that's similar to 2019, but the wind is out of the sails, right? It's let out, and that leaves you with a terrible taste leaving the theater, along with some choices that are made at the very end of this movie, Ricky Flex. Let's go to Harley Quinn, Lady Gaga, spoiler free before we jump into some actual scenes, because Ricky, I am salivating to talk about what actually went down in this movie. Harley Quinn, I don't love the writing for her character. Like we said before, don't really see the purpose of her. It's easier to talk about with spoilers, but um, she has her moments in the dreamlike sequences. I think she has a great intro to her character. I think her in Arkham Asylum and her introduction with Arthur Fleck is very good. I won't say great, because I did find it a little bit dull at the same time. But I think she was good, but she doesn't get to really shine. She has the screen time like we talked about, but I wanted more. We talk about Joker being this character that has a turn from all these different actors. They want their take on their Joker. Harley Quinn seems like after Margot Robbie, here comes Lady Gaga. Are we going to get the same type of thing here, right? And with ample amount of screen time, I just didn't get enough juice. Anything else you want to add about Lady Gaga here?
I think it just adds to the frustration with this movie.
Yeah.
And I think just Harley Quinn, like Margot Robbie said, like this, she wants this to be a character where it's just passed around and be an iconic character like the Joker is now, right? And Margot Robbie, I think, has done a great job, like kind of championing, like, you know what I'm saying, like the Harley Quinn character. And I think Lady Gaga is a great, like, oh my God, like another up and coming actress, Oscar nominated actress, Oscar winner, by the way, in a different regard. And I think House of Gucci, clearly not a great movie, but I thought she was good in that. And that's Ridley Scott. Clearly, like, she's starting to be more well regarded as like she's a legit actress, like legitimately good critically. And the potential was there. And the singing elements, again, I've said it 3 times now. The Joker 1 being very musically driven, and now really leaning into that in Joker 2 with the Harley Quinn character, Lady Gaga, one of the best voices of our generation, and we didn't get enough. We didn't get enough of it. I think that is a true like what if, I think, for her career and obviously this franchise.
Yes. And it's a huge what if. Like, and we were even talking about her getting her own movie after this. And
I said she was going to get nominated for an Oscar for this role.
And I don't think that was out of the realm of possibility. Joaquin had one for 2019's like Joker. It's just the follow-up. Joaquin's probably not going to repeat, but
No.
you're introducing Lady Gaga to the comic book world in the juiciest role possible, right? That could land her on the Oscar stage. It's definitely not bad. She's clearly talented, okay? But the juice is missing. Ricky Flex, before we get into spoilers, do you want to give scores right now before we get into spoilers, or what do you think?
Sure. Right? Or if you're only listening to spoilers, sorry, my score is heavily dependent on spoilers.
Let's make them wait then, Ricky Flex. Let's
Come
jump
back
into
to the review.
spoilers. This